It all comes as some subcontractors are claiming they have not yet been paid for the work they have done.
So many of our black contractors are complaining about they have not got their money. Contractors are already in bankruptcy. That's what they're saying, that if it wasn't the fact that they worked on this Obama project, they would not be under this type of problem.
So today was the opening ceremony for the Barack Obama Presidential Library, and I have to say, this entire chronicle has been incredible to watch from the start, because the Obamas proudly proclaimed, first of all, that this would be a gigantic DEI project. They said they were going to subcontract to a bunch of black and brown-owned businesses to show how amazingly diversity is our strength or something. And then what ends up happening is the building gets delayed by many years. It ends up being the absolute monstrosity, the famously ridiculed, ugliest presidential library you've ever seen, complete piece of garbage sitting in the middle of Chicago. And then, not to outdo himself, Barack Obama literally race hustles the contractors, because it turns out the people who helped to build the building are still waiting on payment. They're basically saying they got scammed. They got ripped off by Barack Obama, which is quite hilarious, because we talk a lot about race hustling, you know, the BLM grift, how these people claim to start some type of social justice movement, and oftentimes they try to rile up Black America on purpose, and then in the end, what do? Buy a bunch of mansions with that. We saw it with the BLM organization. But I would actually argue that when you think about it, Barack Obama is the original race hustler, and he's maybe the final boss of race hustling, because he took it to the next level. He did the whole thing of becoming president and everything just to, in the end, do what? Buy a bunch of mansions, aggrandize himself, and effectively just steal a bunch of people's money, it turns out, is what's happening here. So we've been watching this take place for, I think, several years now, where the local actual black residents in the neighborhood over in Chicago are really not happy. They think this building's a monstrosity. It's creating massive quality of life issues for the local black neighborhood around them, to which I say, hey, welcome to race hustling. You know, it's fantastic. It's quite the business, honestly. You can claim to be helping out your supposed community while just like taking all the money from them and screwing them over, you know? And then we'll also talk about the ridiculous scenes that poured out of the ceremony itself. We have the stolen land acknowledgements, while of course the Obamas refused to give back the land. As a matter of fact, I think that's the final boss of performative leftism as well, where you do this whole virtue signaling stunt about Native Americans and stolen land, and then instead of giving that land back to the Native Americans, oh, let's just desecrate Native American land by building a gigantic monument to communism on there. How fitting. Let's talk about this whole situation, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, in the ultimate you cannot make this up moment, apparently a bunch of the black contractors that, again, the Obamas hired as this big celebration that we're supporting black-owned businesses, DEI, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out the actual black contractors are furious, because in this case, it is the DEI workers who themselves got race hustled. As a matter of fact, they have not been paid. They did not get their money. We don't know where this is. Rumor has it that Barack and Michelle were seen just stealing it like Looney Tunes characters, you know, running out the back door. But nonetheless, take a listen.
Well, after years of waiting and millions of dollars spent, the Barack Obama Presidential Center finally set to open to the public tomorrow after today's dedication ceremony right in the heart of the South Side of Chicago. It's the most expensive presidential library in modern history, as construction costs have reportedly ballooned from $330 million to at least $850 million. Although an updated final projected cost has not yet been made public, it all comes as some subcontractors are claiming they have not yet been paid for the work they have done.
So many of our black contractors are complaining about they have not got their money. But the other side of it, a lot of the black community And the newspapers do not know that these people have not been paid. Contractors are already in bankruptcy. That's what they're saying, that if it wasn't the fact that they worked on this Obama project, they would not be under this type of problem.
And now the Obama Foundation tells Fox News Digital that it paid Lakeside Alliance, a local construction company, as the project's construction manager, and that Lakeside was responsible for hiring, managing, and paying subcontractors working on the center.
I mean, this whole story is just too good. As I said, the ultimate race hustle, because let's start from the beginning where you look at that cruddy, ugly piece of crap building and wonder, how on earth did that cost nearly $1 billion? And let's be honest, probably in the end, more than $1 billion to build. How was it also about half a decade past date? It was supposed to be done back in 2021. So it's late, it's over budget. Then you find out that they contracted a bunch of supposed black-owned businesses to all get it done. And, you know, they're going to show, hey, look, this is what diversity can do for our country. You know, we're going to do that. We're going to make this big statement. Not only does the project itself end up being a disaster, a boondoggle, maybe not on the level of California high-speed rail, but kind of very in character for just everything that Democrats try to build. And then on top of all of that, the final product is a piece of crap. It gets so hilariously mocked. And then you find out, supposedly this was meant to uplift black businesses, right? Hey, we're going to give them money. This is a big opportunity for them. And instead, it turns out a bunch of these black contractors end up going broke because they got race hustled, because they never got paid the money. And apparently the official Obama response, the excuse that they're giving is it's not their fault. It's the fault of the, I guess, consulting or management company that they paid to then go pay the contractors. And that, by the way, is another supposed black-owned business, which really, again, just means a DEI money laundering scheme, to which I say, okay, you think that leaves you off the hook? This is your whole point. You pick this black-owned business to go and oversee the construction, and so, okay, if it's the case that the black-owned business ended up stealing your money on your behalf, how does that actually make the situation better? You chose them as a political statement, and it fell hilariously flat on your face. But once again, I'm going to say he wouldn't be the final boss of race hustling for nothing. You think BLM with their mansions in Malibu and stuff, you think that was crazy? You think that was, something to be talking about? You haven't met the Obamas, okay? They're on another level of this. So to BLM, I say, get good at the game, okay? You're amateurs compared to, what our black president managed to do. That's actually kind of impressive. I find that to be genuinely and sincerely amusing. Of course, this is also meant to be a big center of culture, in the local neighborhood and all of that. But it turns out on the flip side that much of the local black community is pissed because already this center is going to gentrify the neighborhood, which means what? It's going to drive the low-income black residents out of the area, right? You're going to raise rents, raise property values, all of those things. To which I also say, obviously, right, that's what a great deed Obama has done for the black community. But on top of that, hey, it's gentrified much like Barack Obama, right? Because here you have a guy who claims to be, from the streets or something. He changes his accent every time he talks to black people, he's one of you or whatever. And then what does he do? The moment he gets any degree of political success and wealth and all of these things, he lives in Martha's Vineyard. He lives in the whitest place in the entire United States. I mean, he literally is gentrified. So it's just, honestly, I would argue this library and everything that's gone into building it and this whole fiasco is just like a mirror image. It is the ultimate statement on what Barack Obama's legacy actually is and what that presidency actually was. Looking back on it a decade later, I was frankly not really old enough to experience it in its full glory or lack of glory. But even I remember being a kid and, Good Morning America used to play on the TV before I went to school. And just the insane amount of brown nosing and glazing and just like George Stephanopoulos used to pretend like Obama was the best person ever. And watching as a kid, you sort of buy that stuff a little bit. But then even a couple years after that, I was still pretty young. I just started to realize everybody's just so like obsessed with this guy, and clearly he can't be that good of a president, right? And it turns out, yeah. But years later, after that whole hype, oh, we have a black president, oh, let's have all the cool celebrities come and hang out with him and all this stuff, you're realizing just the absolute disaster he was on so many levels. And this library is just a great reminder of that. But anyways, take a listen. Here's how the black neighborhood is actually feeling about Mr. Obama's big giant ugly stick, whatever that's supposed to be in the sky.
But some folks who live in this area are also concerned the center could lead to gentrification and higher rents.
Now that the Obama Center is coming, all of these new buyers want to come in and they want to take over the land that has already been here and kick out the people that have been here.
Oh, the irony, or perhaps lack thereof. Perhaps it's actually really fitting of being gentrified by Barack Obama, of all people, in the end. Although, let's be honest, all the people in this video probably voted for Obama twice. They're likely going to continue voting to similar political candidates. What do they expect to happen? And it's not even directly just about politics. How many new race hustles get invented throughout the years that are very popular within the community? Obama was the original one, as I've said, although maybe there's ones that date back to the 1990s and things like that. But you had Obama, you had BLM, now you have Carmelo Anthony, who just about 5-6 years after George Floyd turned out to be a gigantic scam of a political movement, you might think to yourself, oh, people won't fall for this again. But the guy raised about $500,000 for his legal defense, and by all accounts, it seems like it got entirely embezzled. And it's just the same thing just keeps happening, right? Like you keep donating to supposedly your liberation or something, or reparations, or this person's going to finally fix it for us, and it never gets done. And you would think at a certain point, pattern recognition should set in and realize, hey, maybe we should just stop getting scammed effectively over and over again. But I guess not. I guess there's not going to be any pattern recognition that takes place there. But okay, so that's how the community feels about it. Barack Obama clearly doesn't care because it was never about the community. Like every other race hustler, it's about the self-aggrandizement, right? But so now we have the opening ceremony today. That, as you could expect, let's remember Obama framed himself originally, and he was honestly even presented to a large degree as this sensible, unifying moderate. And then, years later, he's just the insane wacko leftist like the rest of them. But even the ceremony itself, much like basically every Democrat event these days, opened of all things with, guess what? That's right, a stolen land acknowledgement. So the land is stolen. We didn't hire Native Americans to build the thing. We just bulldozed everything that was currently there before. But guys, we're going to virtue signal that, hey, we acknowledge we're on stolen land, which apparently makes us better than people who don't, even though we're doing the same thing. I don't know. Take a listen.
We'd also like to take a moment to recognize the original inhabitants of the land upon which we are gathered today. We honor the Anishinaabe, the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations.
Yeah, well, this summarizes it pretty well. It's stolen lands, but he doesn't give it back and instead builds a communist monument on it. The mental hurdles, the mental gymnastics are Olympics level, and that's completely true. But hey, one could actually argue to an extent, Obama, being the final boss of race hustling, he's the champion of this stuff, get on his level, didn't just race hustle the black businesses he hired and then didn't pay. He didn't just race hustle the neighborhood who thought their life was going to get better, but it got worse instead. He even race hustled the natives. He race hustled the Indians, right? Because the tribes might have heard all of this and thought to themselves, oh, okay, is he going to give the land to us? Is he going to build something to us or let us build something there? No. But we'll do a virtue signaling statement about it and then build our ugly communist building on there instead, right? Really just desecrating the land, I would argue, just by the sheer virtue of building something that looks that much like a monstrosity. I mean, let's be honest. Does the Obama monument not closely resemble some brutalist, ugly thing built by the Soviet Union, for example? It's actually the same exact architectural style, which I find to be completely hilarious, right? But, you have that whole thing. in Obama's speech, he proceeds to go full CRT, race communist mode, where he's talking about, the racist foundations of America, attacking the founding fathers, all of these things, which really should not be surprising. But again, we will point out, and I don't think this is a revolutionary take, but yeah, there does seem to be something here diametrically opposed from the supposedly moderate, unifying, uplifting vision of 2008 Obama. As a matter of fact, every time he speaks now, he's just your typical race hustling leftist, right? Very, how should I put it, negative, pessimistic, kind of America's evil, America's racist type of view, which we all understand by now. Obama was lying the whole time when he said he was a moderate, right? We know the story there. The moment he got the political capital to act like the insane race communist he was, he proceeded to do that. One could argue that the modern racial divide, the culture wars, and arguably, the people who say, oh, where did Trump come from? Why did our politics turn into this? Well, in many ways, Trump was a reaction or a natural byproduct of the fact that Obama completely, decided to be, instead of being this unifying moderate that people hoped, he decided to be a divisive race hustler throughout his years. And then American people rightfully decided that they wanted to reject that stuff. However, here's why that matters years later, is that hopefully the reminder and the image of what Obama initially people thought he was and then what he became ought to be maybe a vision going forward and sort of a case study of how. And here's where I'm going with this. When Democrats tell you they're going to govern like these sensible, pragmatic moderates, they're just completely lying to you, okay? It's just not true. So don't fall for that. Don't fall for the act where communists put on a moderate face and pretend to be these sensible, normal people, right? Whether that's James Tallarico trying to do that exact thing, or Gavin Newsom. Watch, I guarantee you, and by 2028, if he makes it to the general election, Gavin Newsom's going to sound like the most normal, center-of-the-road guy ever. We know that's not how he's going to govern. The same was true of Kamala in 2024. The same was true of Biden in 2020. I mean, how often did he say he was going to be a president for all Americans? He's a moderate. And then the moment he gets into power, what does he do? He tries to throw Trump and all his supporters in jail. This is what we should come to expect, okay? So I don't want to hear it again this time of, oh, well, maybe this Democrat, guys, he seems like a normal person. He started not speaking crazily about 2 months ago. No, this is what these people all do, okay? This is who these people really are. If people, not everyone, but if a bunch of America fell for the Obama scam once, how about let's not do it again, okay? Because Democrats are going to try to do that again, because the truth is, Obama in 2008 did run a fantastic campaign, okay? And he did manage to sell a lot of people, and, arguably he did a very good job at that stuff. There's a lot of moments from 2008 Obama where even conservatives will look at and say, wow, if he really was that president, that might have actually been a fantastic thing. I know conservatives, I had Republicans in my family who voted for Obama in 08, and that's the only Democrat they ever voted for, but that's how convincing he was. And then notice how, it was just a big scam all along, right? So just something to consider going forward. But there's the Obama library for you. What a disaster. How fitting though, right? Just the shining symbol of everything he was and everything he turned the country into, right? All of the wokeness, the DEI, the race communism, all of these things can be traced back to what Obama, especially in his second term, sort of laid the roots of in this country. And how fitting it is that he's living that out. He's almost the living embodiment of everything he created to this very day. That said, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.